Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a video for you about this very interesting pocket knife right here. This is the RobJohnsons Cypress V2 pocket knife. Very unusual and came to me from a maker I had never heard of before, but am actually pretty impressed with right here. So let's go on ahead, and today we're going to do a disassembly, and I'll give you my quick thoughts on it, and we will move on that way. But let's go ahead and start off actually with a size comparison. What we're going to see is that this guy is actually not particularly large. Right? In terms of handle length, we're not so far from your Spyderco Delica, although in terms of sharpened blade length, a little bit longer, right? Next to your PM2, this is definitely a smaller, more pocket-friendly sort of knife, and then here it is against the Ontario Rat number 2, which in a lot of ways feels fairly analogous in terms of size. This is a little bit, got a little more junk in the trunk here, and a little bit more sharpened blade length in the trunk. Well, technically that's in the frunk. Anyways, moving on. But before I shoot the original video without including this and go any further, I gotta let you know that this guy was sent to me by RobJohnsons. They reached out to me, said, "Hey Nick, we've been fans of the channel for a long time, and I'd like you to finally check out one of my pieces." And they did send this guy along, straight from the Latvia. As always, I told them I'm gonna talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. It might be a gem, it might be junk, and I also told them that I'm taking forever to do reviews these days, and they agreed to all that. But nonetheless, we do have to assume this is the very best quality control one of these ever, because the maker is a fan of the channel and knows that I'm a nitpicky bugger, so he probably figured that part out. And I'm doing my absolute best not to let that affect the nature or the quality of my review. Now, let's head back to the originally shot review. There is that. And then the other thing I do want to highlight real quick is the weight of this knife. This guy, we have got a blade here that is coming in just around 3.25 or 3.2 inches or so, and it's coming in at 2.58 ounces. This is an incredibly lightweight knife. It's, in some ways, it can be hard to really get across to folks the lightweightitude of a knife like this. It really feels light in a very meaningful way. And so part of the reason I'm interested in taking this guy apart, aside from the fact that I always do that, is that I'm curious how they've done that. I suspect there's a lot of internal milling here. But when I take this guy apart, I am betting that we are using two different this could be an optical illusion. Could be both of these at this looks like T10 almost, but I think we're just taking these two screws out. I'll start with T8. Okay, that's T8. Is that free? Oh, that's free spinning. All right, we can go on ahead and put that in the demerit column. Never a big fan of free spinning screws. It just means that you need more tools in order to do the same thing. Hopefully that's a thing they can address in future versions. But doesn't appear to be much thread locker or anything like that. And so there's that, and then I bet the pivot is the same. Yes, it is. Is it also free spinning? That's a different question. Actually, no, I don't believe it to be. And in fact, I believe that the side that is not free spinning is this one, because this has a circular surrounding, whereas this is pentalobular. Well, not pentalobular, trilobular. I don't even think that's a thing. Geometers, let me know in the comments. But anyways, so yeah, I needed to unscrew this side. This side does not rotate because it is inside this little trilobular sort of affair there. I may have just made up a brand new word. New shape just dropped. Wake up. Anyways, moving on. It's funny as I know there is at least one mathematical topologist who watches the channel. Maybe he could help. So, yeah. Looks like I need to unscrew it from this side, but the screw is actually, the screw end is over here. That's kind of unusual, right? Usually the side you unscrew is the side with the screw, whereas this makes you unscrew the pivot. Wait, what? Am I... This side is... Oh, but that's just a collar surrounding the part that you screw. Could this have been assembled backwards? No. No. I don't know. Look, either way, the knife is apart. That's weird. That's real weird. Yeah, because this is just one continuous piece, so it is... Well, no, it's not. It looks like maybe they have thread locked in this screw on this side when maybe they meant to do the other side. Either way, I'm confused. I don't know. I am accomplishing what I need to, though, so I'm just going to go on ahead and call well enough good and move on with my life. By the way, if you're curious about any of the tools I'm using in this disassembly, nickshabazz.com/tools has all your details. All right. So what we have here is a pretty straightforward internal construction. We have ourselves an internal stop bin. We have a great deal of internal milling, which is actually done quite nicely, right? Doing the checkerboarding on the bottom of the internal milling, bit of a flex, right? We also see that we have a detent ball, which seems to be maybe some kind of ceramic bearing in there. Mounted within a lock bar insert, which is screwed in on the inside, which is nice. The lock bar insert will always prevent the any kind of lock stick from happening. It does look like the ball bearings are running directly against the titanium. This bothers some folks because the differential hardness and the possibility of eventual wear and or pocketing if the bearings get too much push. I have not had that be an issue for me, but, you know, that is a thing. A lot of folks would put a steel washer on the other side, but they're trying to keep this thin and svelte. I kind of get it, right? But, yeah, we see here how there is so much weight reduction. The real question is, can I then swap the sides of these? No, it wouldn't make sense to anyways, because I'm taking out the screw. I am so confused by the pivot. That was the equivalent of walking up to a drink machine, putting in your $1, well, it's 2023, your $8, hitting the button for Dr. Pepper, and then just having mayonnaise shot out of the coin slot at you. It just doesn't make any sense. So, yeah. That was interesting, but we do see here a very, very small ceramic ball bearings, which explains partly the excellent action here. And then the back spacer looks like this is a pin, so it's able to just kind of rotate around that. Okay, now how the heck do I put this thing back together? All right, so what we're going to do is tighten that slightly. It looks like, yeah, this guy needs to go in first. I would like the pivot to not be free spinning, and more importantly, I'd like it, and it isn't, technically, but more importantly, I'd like it to be normal. I'd like me to be normal, but that's beside the point, right? So, you know, a bit of hypocrisy here. Going ahead and use some knife pivot lube here to lube up the knife pivot. That is pretty intuitive, I'll say. Going ahead and lube up the pivot here. But I kind of wish that I wasn't having to unscrew the side that is the pivot rather than the screw. That would make more sense to me personally. But maybe I'm just old-fashioned. I'm going to go ahead and... looks like there's a little bit of gunk on the inside of this, so I'll go ahead and clean that out. There we go. And I'll clean out the inside of the pivot too. Alrighty. Okay. I'm allergic to something this morning, sounds like. Sorry about my voice, although everybody on YouTube wishes I'd say that all the time, so here we go. Let's go ahead and put the last bearing on here. Okay. Clean off the tip of the pivot there. And now what we got to do is get this little pin here seated. So this pin goes in here. It will not be able to happily pop down as I need it to. Well, okay, I think I probably need to lead with the backspacer side, because it has a larger protuberance to put in place. But I'm going to need to, in order for things to snap together, here, put the bottom, disengage the lock bar a bit. Okay, is this in position? Yes, it is. So now what I do is I reinsert the pivot screw. And actually, I'll use a little bit of thread locker on here. Some blue Loctite on a stick here. Which still sounds like something you'd get at a state fair. Alright, now I need to Just drop this whole shebang in here. Come on. Why don't you want to go home? Is there gumption under there? There is a little bit. Let me go ahead and just clean that out. Yeah. I don't think that was the problem, but it certainly wasn't not a problem. Okay, so I've got the collar in there. Now I just need to get the pivot screw in. But there's a certain point at which I'm going to need to, like, I can start screwing the pivot screw in, but there's a certain point at which it's going to actually need to just engage with the pattern there surrounding it. I need to get that in alignment here. That looks like it's in alignment. And then what I'll do is I'll continue from the other side and then tighten it the rest of the way. Yeah, that works, but it's also way more unintuitive than you might expect. Sort of hope they swap those two around so that the screw is the part that turns rather than the whole pivot. But whatever, not the end of the world. Then I'll go ahead and I'll tighten this guy, which again also should not free spin. Okay, and let's see where we're at. Did I put any lubrication on the detent ball? I did not. But luckily I can use my little needle applicator here and just put a little drip. Or maybe I did, who knows. Put a little drip on there. Yeah. Okay. So, any blade play, zero blade play, in any direction, locks up like a freaking bank vault. Centering is still perfect. Okay, we're good to go here. We have finished the disassembly, and I'll go on ahead and I'll give you my thoughts on the Pocketknife here. The Pocketknife, by the way, I probably should have said this earlier on, but the Pocketknife here is not necessarily cheap, but it's actually a little bit cheaper than one might expect, given the frankly, the beauty of the whole thing. Right, this is a $775 Pocketknife, as per the maker there. Go ahead and clean off the blade a little bit. I have been carrying this and using it, so you can see it's got a little bit of gumption on there. But this guy is $775. It includes an extra $50 upcharge for the hex milling, as well as a $75 upcharge for MagnaCut, which is not labeled on the blade anywhere that I saw. Which is actually a demerit, right? I generally, especially when you offer different steels, there's also, I think, RWL34. When you offer different steels, you should probably make those, make that label on there so folks know. But anyway, so the base price, the absolute lowest price here is $650. You can configure higher and higher. And the way I did configure is a little bit higher, but honestly, it's not so bad, right? In terms of the quality that we got here, I mean, sure, $775 is a good chunk of change, but this is beautifully machined. I will say that 100%. This is absolutely gorgeous in the machining here. And it's got a very nice luster to it, right? It's very common that people will do this kind of intricate machining, but maybe they stonewash it or something like that, so that it just loses a little bit of that. This is really, really nice. And you see the contour, like the swoop of the scale there, interacting with the hex pattern throughout it. That's pretty cool. And, the whole thing looks pretty good. I do kind of wish that they'd continued the hex pattern here, rather than doing this other sunbursty thing, although the sunburst looks good, quite readily, right? But, the machining here is very nice, as is the internal milling, that little bit of flex, not only milling a number into the inside of the knife, but, which isn't a big deal, but it is a deal, right? But the internal milling here is nice. The matching here, this backspacer, this is a very, very nicely made Pocketknife. I like a large part of the machining that's being done here. You can tell that that Nicholas here, the guy from RobJohnsons, is doing very good. By the way, why is a guy named Nicholas running RobJohnsons? It's apparently named after his great-grandfather Robert and his great-great-grandfather John. They were both blacksmiths, and he's carrying that heritage forward and making this. Therefore, it's RobJohnsons rather than Nicholas RobJohnsons or something like that. I don't know. Look, either way, I don't know how things work over there in the Latvia. Name's a little unusual, but I'll take it, right? It absolutely works. But the machining on this guy is absolutely good, and it's very crispy. The knife is also very lightweight. This feels very, very light for what you were getting, right? There's a lot of blade in a very light package here, and I very much do appreciate that. That's nice. A couple of other details that I do appreciate here. Although, as I mentioned, the orientation of what is free spinning and not is a little weird, but the fact that they've avoided the free spinning pivot with this very nice kind of screw sort of situation, that's pretty cool. I gotta say that the two screws are a little asymmetrical, right? You got beautiful, fluted, fancy screw on the back there. That seems a little off, but it's not the end of any worlds. And also, by the way, the clip is screwed internally, right? So there's no screw showing on the clip itself, which is a relatively deep carry clip, right? That's pretty impressive there. So, overall, the machining on it is quite nice. The blade is well done. This is in Magna Cut steel and comes to a very, very, very thin edge. It's beautiful in that regard. Big fan of the nice thinness of the edge here. No complaints whatsoever about that. The blade itself, there's sort of a satiny looking finish here, and then looks to be a very light bead blast on the grind here. I don't know that I love that particularly, given that everything else on the knife is very shiny. Having that blasting there is maybe a little odd, but at the same time, whatever, might hide some crimes. But this feels like something that could do well with like the milling lines left in there. Assuming he is, of course, milling out the grind. If he's actually hand grinding, then that could be a different thing altogether. But it is very, very much a nice knife. A couple of things that are demerits here. One of the things is that this hole is purely for aesthetics, right? There is no plausible way. The nature of this ramp is such that you really can't get your thumb in there. Or at least I sure can't. No, because in order to get your thumb in there, you need to grip tightly, but then you're on the lock bar. There is just not a way to use this as an opening hole, except two-handedly. And that may be the intent, right? It could be being sold often in places. I know there are some places in Europe that have a two-hand open law, and so this would become a two-hand opening knife in that situation. This is really more intended to be used as a front flipper, and it works fine in that regard. I would like a little bit more prominence here, right? This is a very small front flipping nub, and so it leads it to be a little bit more fiddly and a little bit more insecure, if you will, as opposed to something with a much larger front flip, a much higher front flip nub, that would give you a little bit more leverage, so to speak, and allow you to do that a little bit better. My biggest complaint, that's a detailed sort of thing, but you have to like front flipping to use this knife, right? There is no option for a flipper, and this opening hole isn't really an opening hole. It's either two-hand open or it is a front flipper pocket knife, and you need to be content with front flipping in order for this to work well. And like I said, they could really raise that up a little bit and make that front flip experience a little bit nicer. The other thing that is a little annoying about this knife is the clip is very, very low, right? The ramp is good, the contour is good, the flex is good, but this needs to be higher up. This second part needs to be much higher, because this is really designed for yoga pants, right? This is really designed for super thin fabrics. It is kind of a challenge to shove a thicker pocket fabric into this knife. This whole thing just needs to be moved up a little bit. I mean, if we compare this to, let's see, who's got a good clip around here? Even look at the Delica here. Yeah, this is an order of not an order of magnitude, but a large amount smaller, lower, that is, than this. And I think that ends up being a problem. Ergonomically, certainly it can be nice to have it low, but this is just way too low. So they need to raise the clip up off the handle of the knife a little bit. That would be better. So, to me, at least, those are the main demerits, right? They could raise the front flipper a little bit. This pivot thing, a little weird. And then the clip absolutely does need to be raised up. But on the whole, this is some pretty impressive machining. On the whole, I gotta say, it's a pretty cool knife, right? They've done a very nice job. They've done a very nice job with the lightweightness. They've done a very nice job with the action. They've done a very nice job with everything they're doing here. Lock bar insert, etc. This really does feel like it's pretty well dialed in. It feels like they've done great work here. And this is a maker I'll absolutely be keeping an eye on in the future, right? RobJohnsons is not, and by the way, they also, included a nice box with it. Not, the end of any worlds. It's not important that they gave a nice box, but it is also like, hey, that's a presentation, ain't it? But anyways, so it's a very nice knife, and they've kind of put themselves a little bit on my radar. This is, I'll be very curious to see what they're doing in the future, because although this is definitely a great design, it shows some hallmarks of still getting used to the knife design field, and as they continue to work out those bugs, as they continue to learn and to continue to build, if they're starting off machining this well, then by God, they're gonna be somebody to watch. So anyways, there you go. That's my thought. I hope this has been interesting to you, that you found this Cypress to be a treat, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you Latvia. Get it? Because he's Latvian. Okay. Bye now. This was a Regal review. Okay. Bye now. Because Riga. Bye now.